How many, I wonder, of my videos begin with me saying the words, I'm on Chesil Beach? Well, I'm on Chesil Beach today, but we're not walking Chesil Beach today. Ahead of me here is the Isle of Portland, and the objective for today is to try to walk all the way around the island. So the first part of that is to head off to get to the island itself. We've got a little bit of walking still to do, and then head east. Somewhere over here there is a heliport with a landing pad, well, various landing pads, and almost a runway. I think it might be a runway for hovercraft, or it might have been. But anyway, we walk past this screen, and then we're going to cut over there to get to Portland Castle, which is, well, I see Portland Castle, that's it over there. But we're going to walk on the other side of this green area. Yep, there's the heliport there, fenced off, and you can just see the landing pad. So the coastal perimeter of Portland is about 11 miles or 12 miles or infinite, depending on how you measure it. So we're going to need some sustenance for this trip. And for that, I'm going to hand you over to Studio Shrimp, or maybe it's Budget Challenge Shrimp. He's going to have a serious talk about what I'm carrying on this trip today. Actually, it's anything but serious.
You may have seen me review military combat rations on this channel before. I've taken a number of 24-hour ration packs out and given them a field test. And I was just kicking around an idea. Some of the things that are sometimes in those military ration packs are just regular consumer products. Chocolate bars, instant soup, that sort of thing. Sometimes the packaging's a bit different. Some of the things are not just regular civilian items, but it got me thinking, can we construct a civilian 24-hour ration pack? So that's the objective today, is to visit the shops and try to create a civilian shelf-stable 24-hour ration pack. There are going to be some rules. I know you guys love rules, so there are lots of rules. So it has to be shelf-stable. It has to contain enough sustenance for 24 hours. 3 meals, notionally breakfast, lunch and an evening meal. One of those meals should have 2 distinct courses, and the meals should appeal to reasonably normal culinary tastes. Nothing very, very weird and wacky. Minimal duplication or repetition of meals. There should also be 3 hot beverages, 2 cold beverages, and at least 2 snacks, kind of Elevenses and afternoon tea or whatever. And everything must be in manufacturer sealed, shelf-stable packages only, with at least 4 months of best before end. That's not a particularly long expiry date, and often the stuff that's in military ration packs has got years of expiry date on it. I'm just doing this as a kind of exercise to say, could I stock a bug out bag that I'm going to check every month or 2? So yeah, everything has to be manufacturer sealed, shelf stable packages. Inner packages from larger multi-packs are fine, as long as they are manufacturer sealed. So, you know, if I could take a bag of crisps out of a multi-pack of crisps, but what I can't do is open a family-sized bag of crisps, tip some out into a bag and seal it myself, if that makes sense. It must meet the macronutrient RDIs for energy, protein and fibre. So that should be 2,500 calories, plus or minus 10%. Not greater than the RDI for fat, especially the saturates. Not greater than the RDI for carbohydrates, especially free sugars. I can't remember what those are, but I'll put them on the screen. And the target salt shouldn't exceed the maximum recommended intake of 6 grams per day. 6 grams of salt is not a lot. This, I think, is going to be one of the hardest parts of the challenge. Everything I buy must be able to be consumed either cold or minimally prepared with a single burner stove, a mess tin, a cup and a drinking bottle. Those items don't have to be in the kit, I'll take them with me. And all of the packages should be able to be opened without additional tools, so no tin opener. The whole ration pack should pack down into a container no larger than a typical 24-hour military ration pack, so something like 30 by 20 by 15 centimetres. Here is an example of a military ration pack. This is a Ukraine military ration pack that I've had for a few years now, actually, and I ought to get round to using this because it's expired in 2023. It's probably still okay, but we'll get round to doing this at some point. But yeah, that's the kind of size, but this is a typical-ish 24-hour ration pack. The cost should not exceed £20 or the price of a cheapest in-date 24-hour military ration pack available online at the time of this challenge. They typically go for around 20 quid on eBay and in surplus shops and things like that. So £20 is about the going rate for the entry level, the bottom level of daily 24-hour ration packs. And as I said earlier about sealed inner packages from multi-packs, those will be priced pro rata. And there must be no significant leftovers. So everything needs to be approximately the right portions for the meals for the day. This is the tricky part as well. So I can't buy a great big pack of something and say, well, it's okay, I'm only going to eat half of that. So those are the criteria. Quite a lot of rules this time. I don't know how well I'm going to do with this many rules. Let's go shopping. The most obvious place to start the shopping seemed like the notionally healthy snack aisle. The problem is that a lot of stuff that is marketed as low in, say, fat may be higher in sugar and salt, probably just because there needs to be something in there to make it taste good. It used to be the case that the nutrition stats on most food packaging were highlighted with a traffic light colour coding system to draw your attention to things like high sugar, salt or fat, but this seems to be gradually getting replaced by a neutrally coloured convention that's just less helpful at a glance for assessment of nutrition. I was looking for some kind of starchy staple thing. I'm sure that in the past I found packaged flatbreads with a surprisingly long expiry date, but I couldn't find them now. Although 2 months is still quite a long date, I suppose. There were quite a few flavoured rice and couscous options, but they were high in salt, and the lower salt options seemed to be the stuff that was unflavoured in any other way too. I should say I'm completely ignoring those things that are marketed as all-in-one, nutritionally complete meal slurry type stuff. For one thing, because it seems a bit too easy just accepting something someone else has already balanced for nutrition, but also I don't think those would meet the criterion about meals appealing to reasonably normal tastes. I looked at various single portion breakfast things. A lot of these were high in sugar, but a few were not. Single serving cold drinks were a bit tricky. There just aren't many powder options of the sort you might find in a typical military ration. So I decided cans or cartons would have to do. The liquid is more weight in the ration pack, but it means I can carry less additional water. I was conscious that I was blowing right past the salt and sugar limits, so to try to keep that in check a little, I did peruse the baby food aisle too. I wanted to include some nuts as one of the snacks, and this was more difficult than I thought it would be. The options are basically too many, too salty, or too expensive, or all three. Okay, shopping is done. That was not easy. Here is the haul. Breakfast is going to be this breakfast shake, Up and Go chocolate, bursting with real oats, milk and vitamins. And this does appear to be quite well fortified with all of the vitamins and stuff, which is a good thing. That wasn't part of the criteria, but we've got a good balance of vitamins in there. And one of these blueberry whole grain oat bars. This is a multi-pack of 4, I think, and I'm just going to have 1 out of here. So that is breakfast. My main meal is going to be these beef meatballs in tomato sauce, which I got in Lidl, and it was reduced down to £1.45. This is beef meatballs with added soya protein in tomato sauce. To go with that, I was looking at pasta. There are these packets of pasta in sauce, but they've got a lot of salt in them. Actually, these meatballs have got a fair old bit of salt in them. There is per 100 grams, there's 1.42 grams of salt in here. So, and this is a 280 gram pack, so there's like 4 grams of salt in there. Anyway, there's that. And to go with that, I got this pack of glorious grains. A lot of these rice things were either really plain and they were fine, or the flavoured ones, like they did a Mediterranean one, but they all had a lot of salt in them. So this is one I chose because it doesn't have a lot of salt in, but it is just grains. It's not, there's no sauce in there. Now, normally you do these in a microwave, but you can cook them in a pan over the hob with a dash of water. So that fits, that's my lunch. Might have to supplement that with a bit of foraging. Now, one of the main meals has to have a dessert. And so I got some Little Freddy banana yogurt. This is from the baby food aisle. And I chose this because it's, you know, some of the stuff in the adult food just had loads of sugar in it. It seems like we're okay with caring for the nutrition of children, but not adults. And to go with that, to sort of echo the banana theme, I've got these banana bread oat boosts. Again, this is multi-pack 4. These are oaty flapjack things. Not very big, mind, but there we go. That's my dessert to go with one of my main meals. Instead of this, it was going to be this, same brand, Gray's Lively Lemon Oat Boost, but the best before end on here is only, when is it? April. So that's only got a couple of months. So that wouldn't meet my criteria for shelf stability. This one, however, is. This one doesn't expire until June. So I'll have to eat that some other time. What a shame. My other main meal is all in one. This John West harissa spiced super tuna salad. So this is a tuna salad with couscous and lentils. So that's just a packed lunch in one thing. So that's the other meal. My first hot beverage is going to be Nescafe Cappuccino. Again, a lot of the instant coffee drinks, the portion-sized instant coffee drinks, were sweetened. This one is unsweetened. It's the only one I could find that was unsweetened, and so unfortunately we've had to give Nestle some money. So that's one of my beverages. Other beverages are going to include green tea. So this is a multi-pack of green tea. It's got 20 individually wrapped tea bags in there in 4 different flavours. So we'll have 2 different flavours. We'll have a peach and passion fruit green tea and blackcurrant and strawberry. The other hot beverage I've got is this Belgian Choc Cherry hot chocolate. So that's my 3 hot beverages. That's one of my cold beverages is going to be tea in just some cold water. And my other cold beverage is going to be ginger beer. No added sugar, ginger beer. So, I mean, there's just almost, this is just a can of carbonated water, basically, with a bit of flavour. But anyway, there we go. That's my other cold beverage. Snacks. I was conscious we were fighting against the salt and sugar limits and losing. So again, back to the baby food aisle. Mini cheese crackers. Organics mini cheese crackers. And again, these are intended for young children. And so they're just little cheesy crackers, but they're very low in salt, reasonably low in sugar. That's one of my snacks. We've got to have one snack that's just normal and doesn't have any limits on it. So it's going to be a Cadbury's Picnic. Just a chocolate bar containing raisins, nuts, crispy cereal, chocolate, caramel. And then another snack, which is a little pack of toasted cashew nuts. So these are not salted though, because by the time we got to this part of the shopping, I'd already gone over on salt. So I've already failed on salt. I think I failed on sugar too. That isn't enough in terms of calories. So it just needs a little top up. I did say no repetition on the meals, but I think we will have to repeat on the snacks. So probably going to have another one of these Gray's banana bread snacks to eat as a snack rather than as part of this dessert thing. That is my 24-hour shelf-stable civilian ration pack. I'm just going to pack it down, see how small it goes, but I think we've met the size criteria. And I will just check the nutrition and put that on the screen at the moment. If I need to top it up with a few more calories, I may just put another pack of these cheese crackers in there. Now, of course, it's all very well to assemble a set of things, and essentially this is the notion of this being a 24-hour ration pack. If you're a civilian, that's not combat rations, that's a picnic. I'm going to go out early in the morning and spend all day out and consume my ration pack out in the field somewhere and come home and tell you how I feel. It needs labelling, of course. Now, if this was a military ration, they'd probably use a stencil font, even though it's not sprayed on with a stencil anymore. It gives it a military vibe. But this is not a military ration pack, so I think our label has to reflect the slightly less serious nature of that. So there we go.
So just coming up ahead of me here is Portland Castle, which seems like a decent place to stop and have a bit of breakfast before we put some proper footsteps behind us. Okay, I was hoping we might be able to go in and sit in the grounds of Portland Castle, but it looks like it's locked, and it looks like there might be an admittance fee. It is run by English Heritage, more about that in a moment. But anyway, we'll just head round this corner and see if we can sit somewhere overlooking it. So this is a private slipway down here, but I believe the actual hard standing area here is open to the public. There was no sign telling me otherwise, just the slipway. So here we go, Portland Castle. I see some rocks to sit on. We'll sit and have a bit of breakfast and talk about Portland Castle. I think we can probably just sit on this little wall here and have some brekkie. Perfect. So I've got my civilian ration pack here. I'm also testing out this thing today. This is this camera clip that I made in a random stuff video, which may have already been published by now. Link to it in this link and in the video description. I'm testing this as a kind of pseudo chest mount. Anyway, let's see what that works out like. So breakfast this morning is going to be up and go chocolate breakfast shake and Stoat's blueberry whole grain oat bar. So this is a all-in-one kind of, it's not exactly as grim as some of those meal slurry things. This is just a chocolate shake, but it's got lots of whey protein and stuff in it. I'll give it a good shake up. Okay, well, down the hatch. Kind of expected that to be a bit thicker than that. It's just like chocolate milk. And my Stoat's blueberry whole grain oat bar. Fruity oaty bar. Oh, interesting. I think this might be a raw oat bar. Don't think this is baked. It doesn't look baked. Anyway, let's give that a taste. Yeah, it's not baked. It's just like a raw oat bar. It's okay. Very fruity. And what a lovely little beach and a fantastic place to have breakfast. So, Portland Castle. Let's talk about Portland Castle. Actually, I'm going to finish my breakfast and then I'll tell you a little bit about Portland Castle. That's not bad. It just tastes like chocolate milk. So, it doesn't taste like one of those things that conspicuously a fortified meal. Now, I have prepared notes for some of these things today, so if I sound like I'm reading from a script, it's because I am. Portland Castle. It's an artillery fort constructed by Henry VIII between 1539 and 1541. Built in response to growing tensions between England and France and the Holy Roman Empire at that time. Henry had broken from the Pope and the Catholic Church in order to pursue his weird marriage campaign. The Pope encouraged France to attack England, and Henry got a bit worried about that and issued orders to have a load of defensive castles built along the coastline. That conflict eventually subsided, and the castle was used for various other purposes over the years, including a garrison and a prison in the 17th century, defence against privateers, which are basically government-sponsored pirates, in the 18th century, and then a private house in the 19th century and an ammunition store during the two world wars of the 20th century. Today it's a tourist attraction and kind of museum operated by English Heritage. I'm not sure if it's necessary to point out that when we say things like Henry VIII built this castle, we don't actually mean that Henry put down his haunch of mutton, rolled up his sleeves and started moving blocks of stone around. Henry ordered it to be built. That's what that really means. Okay, well, that's Portland Castle. We're not going in there today. As I say, it's a museum and tourist attraction. You have to pay to go in. So anyway, and we've got some steps to put in. So now we need to get up onto the island, which is looming over my view up there. Now, we cannot walk around the exact perimeter of some parts of the island, and this is one of those parts. So this is Portland Port down here, and we can't walk around that bit of coast. But that's okay, because we need to get up onto the top of the island anyway. Better views up there, and that is this way. So yeah, the coastal path diverts inland here a little bit and goes up here. And this is called the Merchant's Incline. It's the remnant of a inclined railway. Track is now removed, but the path, the route of the track is still available as a walking path, and it goes all the way up onto the top of the island. So just a steady uphill slog now from here. That's why I brought the walking spoon. There's quite a lot of up and down on today's walk, and a little bit of extra support, certainly on some of the wonky bits of the coastal path. It's probably going to be quite welcome. So just got a slog up here really, and we'll stop and put the camera on if there's any interesting things to look at. It looks like there are remnants of the edge of the track. This is probably a cherry plum tree here, I think. Too big for blackthorn by the look of it. Could be damsons. Some species of plum. I don't see any thorns. Yeah, so this track just goes up and up. And I shall be quite out of breath. Interesting, worn stones here. There's a rut worn in these stones. And I think that might be, yeah, I don't know if this was a railway track with a metal track, or if it just had carts with a cable system. But there's definitely a rut worn in these stones here. Possibly from the wheels of vehicles. A bit of ironwork there. Okay, well, we're high up enough now that we can see the town of Weymouth over there, across the water and the harbour. It's not a steep hill, well, it's steepish, but it's just relentless. Oh, this is a fig tree. And it's interesting, this one looks like it's kept its winter figs on. Because we're in a coastal environment here, the frost will be kept off. And yeah, it does look like this tree, this fig tree, has retained its winter figs. Fig trees in the Mediterranean have 2 crops per year. Here a bit further north, they often lose their winter crop just from frosts, but the tree survives and they produce a single crop. However, in coastal regions like this, where the sea, you'd think the sea would be cold, but in fact the sea acts as a massive heat sink and stores summer warmth and repays it during the winter. So the sea keeps the conditions mild here. And so yeah, that fig tree looks like it's going to have 2 crops. Right, we've still got a fair bit of up to do. A little bit further and we can see Chesil Beach now over there, stretching off into the mist towards Abbotsbury, and the Fleet Lagoon there to the sort of east of it. That's right in this view, and the hills behind Weymouth as well, just about visible through the mist. Still not really anywhere near the top. We've got a better view of Chesil Beach, of the causeway across the mainland, now choked with traffic. There are temporary lights on the ferry bridge at the moment, and I think they're restoring the expansion joints or something. I had to set off early this morning so as not to get stuck in that traffic. The road on and off the island is choked with traffic at rush hour, so bright and early for me this morning. And we can see the heliport from up here a bit better. It's got, yeah, it is almost a very short runway down there. And I think that's for hovercraft. So in that sense, and Thomas Hardy I think described the Isle of Portland as the Gibraltar of Wessex, similarly to Gibraltar there is an airstrip across the isthmus that joins it to the mainland. Nearing the top of the incline now. From up here we should be able to see the Verne Citadel. We should be able to see a lot actually, because this is more or less the highest point on the island. I'll get my breath back in a moment and I'll tell you a little bit more about this Merchants Incline. So the Merchants Railway was a cable operated incline railway used for transporting quarried stone off the island. It was built in the middle of the 19th century and stayed open until the middle of the 20th century. Prior to that, stone was moved off the island using horses and carts down the road, but apparently this was deemed to be cruel to the horses, and so this railway was built to transport the stone. I tend to think that might have been more about efficiency and capacity than animal welfare in those days, but maybe not. It was closed in 1939 and it is now a walking trail. So my ration pack today is going to be scored similarly to a budget challenge, because that's the approach I've taken. But one thing I did forget to do was talk about utensils. So I didn't include utensils in the additional equipment. So I suppose by rights I should have to buy some utensils to go in the pack. I am well under budget on the kit cost, so I could do that. And so what I've done instead is, rather than buy a plastic fork I don't need, I've priced it as though I did buy that, but I've brought my own spork on the walk. Anyway, I've got my breath back now. We just need the last little bit of up and then we're going to go across Verne Common. Oh wow, it looks like the traffic is backed all the way up through Fortuneswell as well now. That's not good. So the official path goes this way, but there is another footpath up here, so I need to just double back, cross this bridge and go up the hill a bit further so that we can walk right next to the Verne Citadel. Okay, quite the view from up here. And Portland Castle, in case you're wondering, is around about there behind this big block of apartments. I assume that's apartments. Right, we need to go on that public footpath there across that field. The path runs parallel to the road up the hill, so a bit more up, I'm afraid, but it is what it is. Do I limbo under this? Do I climb over it? Yeah, one or the other. But yeah, we got that way. So up at the top of Verne Common now, and behind here is the Verne Citadel. Well, this is part of the walls of it. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to find some shelter from the wind, and then I'll tell you about the Verne. But yeah, so that's the town of Fortuneswell over there, Chesil there, Castletown over here. Interesting little relic of fence post here. So this says Francis Morton's Patent Liverpool. This to me has the look of a fence post from a railway, so this might have been where the railway incline terminated. This just looks like a railway fence. The kind of over-engineered wire tensioning cast iron stuff that came out of the same foundries that made the rails. Francis Morton's Patent Liverpool. Anyway, just when you think there's no more up, there's more up. Got to say the weather could be better. I was planning to do this on Tuesday this week. It's now Thursday. I tried coming here Tuesday and I was stuck in traffic on the causeway. Couldn't even get onto the island. I got stuck in traffic coming down through White Regis, sat in completely stationary traffic for an hour. By that time it was too late for breakfast, so I gave up and came home, and we're retrying today. But the weather is not so pleasant today as it was on Tuesday. But never mind, I can stand this. So, Verne Common Nature Reserve, grazing animals. Please be aware that livestock are grazing in this enclosure. Please ensure that all dogs are kept on leads and remain under close control at all times. Failure to comply will result in the dog warden being notified. Do not approach or feed the livestock. Eva is not with me today. I'm just on my own today because I'm out all day. So Eva's tucked up at home. She wouldn't like this weather anyway. So we are walking along the top of basically an earthwork, a dike system that's part of the Verne Citadel defences. Quite a steep bank off to my right, and well, it's not a moat because it's not ever full of water, but a deep cutting off to my left. A pretty impenetrable structure, the Verne, and it was built to be a fort. So the Verne was a fort. It was built between 1857 and 1881, and it was the main fortification and military defence for Portland Harbour. It overlooks Portland Harbour and Weymouth Harbour, and it continued in defensive and military uses, including as a military hospital until the end of World War II, when it was converted into a prison, which it remains to this day, except for a few years from 2013, when it was used to imprison immigrants awaiting deportation before returning to being a regular old prison. Some very steep and uneven steps here, made from local stone. Portland stone being one of the most famous features of the Isle of Portland. And then we're going to go around the corner here to something called the High Angle Battery, which is, I think, possibly one of the main highlights of our walk today. But anyway, there's the entrance to the prison. So leaving the prison behind us, head across here now to the High Angle Battery. Strange name for a thing, isn't it? High Angle Battery. What's that all about? So this is the High Angle Battery, and as you can see demonstrated over there, the guns fired at a high angle, protected by all of this land around here and sunken down into the landscape. The guns fired at a high angle to protect Weymouth Harbour, Portland Harbour and Lyme Bay. And because there was no line of sight from the sea level, any attacking ships would not be able to see where the gunfire was coming from very easily, and so wouldn't be able to return fire. Whereas here, they could fire at a high angle, the shot would go way up into the air and come back down, hopefully on invading ships, presumably aided by lookouts in various different places who would relay back information about how wide the shot was. So it's now a restored tourist attraction and nature reserve, but you can go inside the tunnels, which we will do in a moment. We'll just have a little look around first. But yeah, there's a system of tunnels, and this would have been part of the powder magazine, no doubt. Rails here to bring the shells out and the powder. Okay, well, I think we're going to get some lights out and go inside the tunnels. So these tunnels are known locally as the ghost tunnels. So we're following a track that would have been the route to the ammunition store and the powder magazine. And they built these things with angles on them on purpose. So this goes round a corner, so that basically if there was a blast out there from a landing shell, there's a corner here to stop the sparks and whatnot from going round the corner. It is a shame about the graffiti. So this little thing here is interesting. So you can see there's a really deep window here. This would have been glazed on this side, and there would have been a lantern in there because this is where the powder would be stored, and you can't have sparks around where the powder is. So the lamp would be maintained from the other side, and the oil lamps would be enclosed by a window on this side, blast-proof window. You can see it was sealed up with bitumen or something like that to eliminate any possibility of sparks making their way to the powder. And again, here you've got these two windows, and you can see where there was a frame on this side. We will continue our exploration around here. So I think we're going to find these are quite similar things. There'll be another little thing here, and again it goes around corners. It purposely goes around and reflexes around corners to eliminate any sparks from a blast being blown onto the gunpowder. And I presume, I wonder if there was maybe I think there might have been a system of double doors here, so that the powder would be put in the little hatch there, the door closed down, and then the door on the outside could be opened like an airlock. There's air bricks there for ventilation. Okay, and we come out the other side. So that was one of the powder magazines. Here's another one. So VR up there, Victoria. So this one's just a long tunnel that goes straight through, but we've got some little side tracks. Let's have a look and see what's up here. Nothing, just a window out to where the guns were. Someone else is in here with me, I think, so I can hear footsteps. Or is that the ghosts in the ghost tunnel? There's another powder magazine here, but let's have a look at this. So I think this is just a replica of one of the guns here, and certainly it's replicas of the artillerymen, but that gives you the view of what is meant by high angle. This gun is not visible from the coastline, but it can fire upon the sea and the coastline all the way around. Here's a demonstration of what that means. So there is another tunnel here. I suspect this is going to be similar to the one at the other side. In fact, I think it might be completely symmetrical. Victoria Regina, 1892. So yeah, I think we're going to find this is a very similar pattern
to the previous one we looked in. So powder magazines here, and you can see really hefty door frame. So you can see here just the remains of the stop that would have stopped the lamp from sliding too far forward and breaking the glass that would have been on this side. There would have been a hefty, thick pane of glass here. Back in the video where I walked to Rat Island in Gosport, I found a piece of glass that was probably from one of those windows on the beach. Didn't collect it. No. So that's interesting. Yeah, so yeah, these are all going to be the same. They're all built to a pattern. 3 different rooms, but similar pattern on both sides for the shells. The shells themselves would have been packed with explosive, but there would have also been charges of gunpowder for firing them. So that was the high angle battery, but we need to move on. And in case you're thinking of visiting this area, the high angle battery is free to enter. And up here is a place called Fancy's Farm. I think nowadays it's run as a educational resource. I thought that was just a very big R word, not that R word, the other R word. We're on the Isle of Portland, and it is taboo to mention the name of the long-eared furry man. You know, the long-eared furry man eats carrots. Yeah, these are wallabies. How about that? I think this one might be coming to see me. Or not. Or hiding from me. Oh well. Right, onward. And the weather is turned a little bit for the worse, but we're going to press on. Got to make it all the way around the island. It's only about 9 o'clock, but we're heading down the east side of the island, down towards Portland Bill. A few interesting things to see on the way down there. It's just past the farm. We're going to turn here across the quarry, because there's a strangely named monument to see over here. Let's see if we can find it. There it is, just emerging from behind this bank. This stone pillar here is called Nicodemus Knob. The reason for that name is somewhat obscure. This is a quarrying relic, one of several on the island. This is not a constructed stone pillar. It's a bit of quarry they didn't dig away. So rather than that being built up, that's just not been quarried. Yeah, one thing I will say about Portland stone is it's slippery when wet. So some of these stone paths, or some of these paths where there is stone emerging from the surface, they can be quite treacherous. Can I get down here? I don't think so. Okay, well anyway, there is Nicodemus Knob. I'm going to see if I can get around that way and go down that side and maybe walk through. So yeah, walking down some of these rocky paths in this drizzly weather, actually quite dodgy. I am glad of the walking spoon today. No, instead I've actually ended up higher up than I thought. There might have been well, there is a rocky pass down there. I might give that a go. But yeah, so this was a quarry, Admiralty Quarries, and actually the stone here was quarried by convicts. It housed in one or the other of the 2 prisons on the island. We'll have a look at the second one in a moment. So Nicodemus Knob is a quarry relic. They just didn't quarry that bit of stone. Reasons why they didn't do that, hypotheses abound. It could have been a monument to the quarry workers. It could have been a lookout post for the people supervising the quarry workers. It might have been a day mark, because when you're down there on the water, coastlines can look very similar, and having something that sticks up that's recognizable could be a benefit to navigation out there in the bay. Can I get down here without breaking my neck? Should I even try? Nope, not going to do it. These, as I say, these rocks are treacherously slippery. I don't fancy sliding all the way down there on jagged rocks. So we're going to admire Nicodemus Knob from up here. Down there is part of the port of Portland. This is part of the coast you can't walk along, or not easily anyway. So yeah, as a quarry relic, Nicodemus Knob shows you where the land level was before quarrying. So that is the original land level surface up there before all the limestone here was quarried away. It's continually strange to me that the Isle of Portland that they've just basically decided the best thing to do is cut it into cubes and sell it. Minecraft before Minecraft. Right, I'm just going to stop now because I need to find the footpath that goes through. There's a maze of footpaths here, and I need to find the right one that will take me down to the grove over there. So warning sign here. Deep excavation and loose rocks. Let's have a little peep over this bank here. So yeah, this is I think this is no longer a working quarry. I think it's being used as landfill now. So filling it back up with rubble and demolition waste, that sort of thing. But this is Admiralty Quarry. I realise we haven't done any nature ramble stuff just yet. So this is a plant we see very commonly here on coastal environments. This is wild radish. This is a coastal forageable, and we might be doing a little bit of foraging today because there isn't very much green, there isn't much vegetable in the ration pack I've made, so we might be supplementing that with a little bit of green from whatever we can glean from the landscape. I can hear the sounds of quarrying work, so there are still active quarries on the island. I can hear heavy machinery in the distance. We may get a chance to have a view of an active quarry. We might hear a blast from, you know, they do use blasting to loosen the rocks, so we might hear a boom at some point. Well, I think we go left here. This is private property. You're entering Portland Port Estate. You do so at your own risk. Heavy plant and machinery operate in this area. It doesn't say no entry, so there's a footpath that goes down here. So I think I'm going to check the map again. Okay, yeah, so there is a footpath. That's the footpath that goes that way and that way. This is a track down to the old engine shed. So the locomotives that they used on the Incline Railway and for transporting rock from the quarries to the Incline Railway were housed down here. Like I say, it says private property, it says you're entering, it doesn't say don't enter, so I'm assuming that means you can walk here, but whatever happens to you is your own lookout. Anyway, yeah, this just cuts off the corner and takes us straight to the old engine shed. We could go down that footpath and double back, but I'm going to walk down here. And again, underfoot it's very slippery. This is not clay, this is like very finely pulverized chalk or limestone. Not the same thing as a clay mineral, although it has, you know, as far as your boots are concerned, the same kind of stickiness to it. On the island, nearly everything is walls. Because there was such a ready source of local stone, and also because it's quite exposed to the elements, you won't find very many fences, not wooden fences anyway, on the island. Instead of garden fences, typically a lot of the properties here have walls instead. Oh, what can we see over here? Let's have a look. So this is a quarry that's now been converted into a little recreation ground. So there we go, that's the old engine shed, used to house, I assume, a workshop and maintenance shop for the quarry locomotives.
I think there was a plan to restore this engine shed and make it into a little museum or something, but I don't think it ever came to anything. And that's Incline Road down there. I think you used to be able to walk along there, but it's closed to the public now, as far as I know. Part of the Portland port. I don't want to get in trouble today. This looks like it was probably a gun battery up here at some point. So yep, this is a viewpoint over the cliffs, over the undercliff down there, most of which is Portland Port. And we're going to walk down to there. Actually, we're going to get down to that pier down there if we can. We can walk along coastal tracks, but we can't go straight down there. But there's Portland Harbour, and over there Osmington and Kimmeridge and Mist. Oh, there's a buzzard down there. That bird of prey there. Confusing for Americans because that is a bird of prey. That's a buzzard. Buteo. Not a turkey vulture. The buzzard is a name for a bird of prey in Britain and most of Europe. So the old engine shed. Not really very much to see here, sadly. There was a sign on the thing. We'll just have a look at that sign. Yeah, housed the locomotives for the Admiralty Quarry. This plant here is Alexander's. Almost needs no introduction. I've talked about this plant a lot on coastal videos. You can see a lot of it around here. Again, that's a forageable edible, and we might be foraging some of this today. Oh, there's violets down there as well. We might be foraging some Alexander's today. Alexander's is possibly confusable with hemlock water dropwort, the kind of anti-hero of this channel, which I've also mentioned a lot. But if we see both plants, I will show you the differences. But in short, the differences between Alexander's and hemlock water dropwort is one where you'll find it growing. Alexander's, you'll tend to find it on well-drained, rocky or stony coastal areas. Hemlock water dropwort almost exclusively in damp, poorly drained, marshy land. The flowers are different as well. Alexander's has these pale green flowers that are quite tight and in hemispherical clusters. Hemlock water dropwort has flat umbels of white flowers, and the leaves of Alexander's are bigger and less finely divided than hemlock water dropwort. The leaves of Alexander's are a lot like ground elder and celery, to which it's obviously related. Anyway, onward. So behind this wall here is the Grove. This is a Young Offenders Institute. And we're going to walk to the seaward side of it. Of the two prisons or historical prisons on the island, the Grove is the one that was built as a prison. The Verne was built as a fort originally, and then turned into a prison. So HM Prison Portland, which was now called the Grove, was opened in 1848 to house convicts whose labour was used to quarry the stone in the Admiralty quarries and other quarries. Around the prison, a village developed because the prison became a bit of a tourist attraction. Victorians be like. People actually came here to watch the prisoners toiling in the quarries and sit and drink tea. There was a whole boom of tea houses where people would sit and drink their tea and eat their cakes and watch the convicts quarrying. And one notable echo of the tourist attraction angle of the place is the Jailhouse Diner. This is an American style diner restaurant that's staffed by inmates of the institution, for sort of rehabilitation and employment training. The Jailhouse Cafe, which I think is up at the Verne, unfortunately is closed down just last month, but we won't be visiting either because I got my own provisions today. But perhaps another time we might visit the Jailhouse Diner.
So yeah, we carry on straight down here, and then there's a track that will take us down to the coast. We get next to the water again. We're going to head down the coast path and get down there, and the rest of our walk is on the coast. Interestingly, I can see somebody's written something in stones down there next to these two ponds. These two little ponds here are historically interesting. We'll talk about them when we get down there. But for now, down the coast path here. Just going to stop here and look at this cliff face here, because it's sometimes not all that easy to tell what is a wall and what is a cliff face here on Portland. This looks like it was, you know, looks like a flint wall, but this is actually, I think, the natural cherty layer of the natural rock here. So we've got limestone layers, we've got these greyish bits are sort of cherty, flinty stuff. You can see it continues around there. So the quarries obviously were mostly interested in the limestone, the nice clean solid white limestone that they could form into blocks and build monuments and half of London. This path is not very accessible, and let's say that, but yeah, so you can see here this stuff here is hard chert, and we can see flints embedded in the limestone there. So we're trying to head down to somewhere called Folly Pier, which was one of the piers where stone was offloaded onto vessels. So yeah, we are doubling back a little bit on the track here, but this will get us back on the coast for the walk along to Church Ope, which is one of the very few beaches on the island. So after all of that laborious climb up Merchant's Incline, we're now back down nearly at sea level. I imagine that's going to be a bit of a theme for the day. What's interesting here is a lot of what we're looking at here is quarry waste. So the really good limestone they would have cut into blocks and carefully carted down the hill. The cherty stuff and the not so good stone, they'd have just tossed it over the edge, and that's what's all tumbled down here. And indeed along here as well, this is all quarry waste. So coast path back towards Church Ope Cove that way, 1 mile. So there's no right of way through Portland Port secure areas as indicated by the fences and signs, so you need to return the same way to this point. Yeah, so when I was researching this, it looked as though on Google Maps there were footpaths across Portland Port, and I think maybe there might have been at one point, but there are fences and stuff closing it off now, so you can't walk around the island right next to the sea. There are 2 areas where you just can't do that. One of them is here, Portland Port. The other one's at the other end of the island, down just west of Portland Bill. There's an MOD site which will divert our path away from the cliff edge. I won't be able to record video down there either because obviously it's MOD. Lookout post up there. I imagine there would have been a lot of those sorts of things when that high angle battery was in active service, because obviously you'd need to see where your shells were landing so that you could adjust the guns and take another shot. Some of this area was laid as a minefield in World War II, and I imagine they did a good job of clearing the mines at the end of the war, but sometimes these things are not perfect. So a lot of this is fenced off. I think some of it is just a nature reserve and nobody really goes there. But we can get down this bit, down to Folly Pier, where I think we're going to stop for Elevenses. Okay, here we are. We've come to Folly Pier. Not exactly a beach. I'm going to find somewhere to sit down here. I think we'll get a brew going. Somewhere down amongst these rocks. So I made a tiny little shelter there just to protect my tiny stove from the prevailing wind. Just going to boil up enough water for a drink now and for filling up my insulated coffee flask as well.
So that is that much water, yeah, plus that much water. So drink for now is going to be coffee. Drink for later is going to be this hot chocolate, which I'll make up in that flask, and then that can just sit in there. I'll give a sip of that with my lunch. And my snack is going to be these mini cheese crackers, baby food. I'm interested to try these because there's almost no salt and no sugar in these things, so where's the flavour going to be? But let's give it a try. I'll just check on my water. Not quite boiling yet, but I can see bubbles. I've only got one actual meal that needs cooking today, which is my meatballs and grains. So my coffee is going to go in the mug. Trying to not let any of it blow away. Some of it did. Okay, just put that there in the shelter. My hot chocolate is going to go in that thing. It's very breezy here. Perhaps this is not the best place to make powdered drinks. Right, let's have a look at this water. Pretty nearly there. Right, I can hear boiling. Yep, that's boiling. So stove can go off, conserve gas. And then the tricky part, which is pouring from this mess tin. So into the mug, fill that up. Seemed to work. Into the coffee cup to make my weird frothy coffee. This should be just enough water for both of these vessels. There we go. Coffee's going to need a stir. Let's get the lid on this chocolate before I spill it. Here's my frothy coffee. I really don't want to spill that. It's sliding around on top of this wood here. Here's my frothy coffee. It does tend to clump a little bit, this coffee powder stuff. But there we go. That's supposed to be latte. Or was it cappuccino? I don't suppose it really matters. It's not either. Let's try these organics cheesy mini cheese crackers. Okay, that's what they look like. Tiny little docked rectangle crackers. What do they taste like? Not very much. Very faintly cheesy, but where these are such low salt, they've almost got no flavour. I might save those and do something else with them and choose a different snack for now, because that's not a very satisfying snack. So right, so my picnic I'm going to save for later, because that's probably my nicest snack. I've got my banana bread. That's the snack one. That's not my dessert. So I've got two of those. And I've got some cashew nuts. I think we'll have the banana bread thing. So those cheesy crackers can go back in there for now with the top folded over. And we'll just save that for later. So, Gray's banana bread oat boost. Not big. Tastes good though. Nice, sticky, syrupy banana flavour. That's really good. Banana and coffee is a great flavour combination, by the way. The other thing I'm going to do now is my cold beverage, which is going to be one of these green teas, my blackcurrant and strawberry green tea. I'm going to put it in this water bottle so that it can infuse in that water. And I think I can probably post the tea bag down through the drinking slot there. Leave the little tag out. Hopefully that will still seal. So that's just going to be cold brew green tea, which we'll have later. The sun is coming out. So this coffee, it's all right. It's not especially coffee flavoured. It's not especially anything, but it's nice to have a warm drink after that little bit of a trek. Need to make sure I keep myself hydrated. Actually, this is my first drink since breakfast, and that wasn't really a drink, so need to make sure I just remember to keep myself hydrated. Okay, we'll leave nothing behind except the beach. Oh, these rocks are proper ankle breakers. It's just an uneven and loose tumbled surface. Let's just go and have a little look at Folly Quay while we're here, or Folly Pier. Slightly finer materials here actually on the beach, so this might be a bit better to walk on. Interesting bit of banded chert there. I wonder if that would tumble well. I might see if I can find a smaller piece of that, because banded chert tumbles up nicely in the rock tumbler, if Michigan Rocks has taught me anything. Okay, so this is Folly Pier. Not really a lot to see here actually. Makes me wonder if it was worth trekking all the way down here, but at least we had a nice place to sit and drink coffee. Anyway, now I need to head back up the hill and then along past that point over there. Nice little piece of sea glass, that's coming home with me. And there is quite a lot of that banded chert on the beach here, so I may gather up a rock tumbler full of that and see how it tumbles. There's another piece there. That might be a bit too big for tumbling, but there's some rather pretty banding in there. I wonder how that will... I mean, I could cut that up, but I could just pick up smaller pieces. It does mean the rest of my journey I'm going to be carrying a bag of rocks in my backpack, but there we go. That will do me some good. So probably the exercise. So here we got a piece of shelly limestone. So this has got loads of, this is like fossil soup. It's got loads of bits of bivalve, possibly brachiopod fossils in it. I'm not taking that with me. I have to limit the number of specimens I can take back with me. It's possible that we might find urchins here actually, echinoids. I have been looking around, I haven't seen any yet, but they would be a thing you would find in these sort of, in amongst these rocks. Anyway, I can't spend too long here because we've got to make tracks. Look at that nice old chunk of banded chert, but if you think I'm carrying that round the island with me, you're mistaken. There's quite a lot of it here. Okay, change of plan. I'm not taking any of this home with me, this banded chert, because I can feel the ridges. So these pieces have been worn down by the sea, and I can feel the ridges there, which means that when I try to tumble that would undercut. It probably means that the bits in between the darker bands are softer material. So rather than carry around a whole pocket full of rocks with me, let's lighten the load. So yeah, you can see from the rocks that have been actually naturally tumbled by the surf here that isn't going to work. It's a shame, but yeah, like I say, you can feel those ridges. I am taking that bit of sea glass though. So this is the little watercourse that was running through the pipes actually on the beach that I was sitting on. I don't know if that's a natural watercourse or if that's just land drain. That's an interesting little thing there. Isn't that for like getting vehicles out of bogs, and if they're mired in sand you put that under the tyres? Isn't that what those are for? I checked my watch and that wasn't Elevenses back there at Folly Pier. That was actually second breakfast, I suppose, because that was only 10 o'clock. It's now about 10:30 and we're heading off to Church Oak Cove. Hopefully we'll get to Church Oak for Elevenses, but we'll just stop to look at these things here. This is a medieval salt pan. There's another one just over there. Somebody's written their names or something in stones on the side of it. So this would have been used for concentrating seawater into brine, which would then have been evaporated further to make crystals of salt. So this may not have been quite so close to the to the shoreline in those days. The shore may have been eroded back a bit more since then, but yeah, so seawater would have been tipped into this muddy little pond here and allowed to concentrate in the sunlight, because this is the southwest facing side of the island, so the warmer side of the island, and of course there's always a breeze to evaporate the water as well. And then the brine, I think, would have been collected up probably and boiled in clay vessels to concentrate it into salt crystals. I can actually see some white. I don't know if that's just chalk at the bottom of that water there, or if that is actually salt crystals down there. I imagine when there are storms here, probably the water does splash into those pools, but it can't drain out. So it may well be that they still concentrate salt to this day, just kind of accidentally. Interesting structure here. I assume this is a drain or something, or a sewer. Are you thinking Teletubbies, or are you thinking Super Mario? So we got a view of the other salt pan here. This is it here. We could go down and have a look at that, but I'm not going to. It's quite a steep path down there, and we've got to make tracks and get to Church Oak. We're only about a quarter of the way around our walk at the moment, and I really want to get to Portland Bill by lunchtime. Little patches of sunlight out there. The sun is trying to come through the clouds. The rain has eased off for now, so that's good. Although I can see more. That does look very drizzly and misty, and looks like there's more precipitation out there to see, which may come inland to give us a little sprinkle. Never mind. Yeah, wow, this is quite a impressive view of these cliffs from the underneath here. And actually you can see these cliffs are not necessarily natural. You can see some very, very straight lines in the cliff edges there, and I think that's where it's been quarried up to that point. So that down there is Little Beach. I think you can get down there somehow, and I imagine, you know, you could walk along these rocks and clamber over these rocks. My ankles probably wouldn't take it, but anyway, there's Little Beach. You won't be able to see it on the camera, but out on that rock, out in the water, there's a cormorant just sitting on the rock. Anyway, we must keep moving. This path that I've been walking along is very level, and I feel sure this was part of the railway that came along here, and this looks like more evidence of that here. This is cinders. So a lot of this path and a lot of this track is built up from cinders, which is probably from steam-powered locomotives. Just seen a raven land on the cliffs up there. There it goes. Huge bird. Sometimes you see a crow and you think, oh, is that a raven? But when you see a raven, when you really see a raven, you know it's a raven. Looks like it might have a nest up there. Remnants down there of another little quayside. You can just see a wall, a little quayside wall there. And again, this would have been for loading vessels. There are so many little wharfs and quays along here where the stone would have been loaded onto ships or barges. And there's some sort of structure down there as well. A little pillbox or something. It would be interesting to visit that another time, but we're not going too far off the track today. There is a network of tracks through this Boulderfield down here, so another time we'll come and just explore this on a standalone trip. Yeah, you can see some of the blocks down there are in their quarried state. So there are blocks of stone down there that were quarried and then never loaded, never used. But just over here we can see the rest of the island, and you can see we got a way to go still before we even get down to Portland Bill. Portland Bill is further than you can see down there. Another one of these quarry remnants here. So this cliff has definitely been quarried, but for some reason they didn't use that bit there. Maybe they didn't want to expose this track, which would have been the railway track. Maybe they didn't want to undercut it, or maybe they just judged that the stone in this particular little bit wasn't worth harvesting. I can hear up here rock doves. I can't see any at the moment, but again we've got this, look at the layers in here, the cherty layer, the limestone layers, then you've got, you know, various different qualities of stone. That was a little finch or something went zooming past then, but the big blocks of high quality limestone in the middle there, and then the maybe not quite so good quality stuff here. But yeah, I heard rock doves, and rock doves are pigeons. The pigeons that you see in cities are the descendants of wild rock doves, and they like to nest on ledges and crevices in cliffs like these. So you can imagine why they would find a city, find the hard landscaping of a city to be attractive. You know, office blocks are essentially, to the birds, artificial cliffs. Yeah, there goes one there. But then every now and again you find a little thing which is artificial. Oh, there goes a rock dove there in through that ledge. So that might well look like a city pigeon, but that is a wild rock dove. This is where they live. But look at that, up there, for some reason, that bit of cliff there has been repaired with bricks. I wonder why. Following the coast path down here, we're coming down to the viewpoint above Church Ope. Is it Church Ope or is it Oop or Up? Interestingly, on one of the old maps I was looking at, it's marked as Church Hope Cove, but I'm pretty sure that's an error. I think the Ope was just a word that meant an opening where you could land a boat. But yeah, here's the viewpoint, and this is Rufus Castle here. As I said earlier, there are not many beaches on Portland, and Church Ope is probably one of the most beachy beaches. Most of the perimeter is, as we've seen, cliffs or jagged rocks. Portland is actually the recorded location of the earliest Viking raid in the year 789. So that event may well have taken place here at Church Ope. The Vikings may well have landed on the beach here. At that time it would have been a sandy beach. The rounded pebbles down there, the limestone pebbles, are the remains of quarry waste that was just dumped down there on the beach. So Rufus Castle up there, also locally known as Bow and Arrow Castle. All of those holes in the wall there are embrasures or arrow loops, so archers would have been able to defend out of those holes in the keep there. It's a 15th century castle with a Norman keep, but some parts of it date back as far as the 12th century, possibly beforehand. So it was built later than that Viking raid, which may have taken place here, but maybe with the same kind of defence in mind, that this is probably the easiest landing spot on the island, and so this castle was most likely built here to defend against invaders who might want to beach their boats here. So we're going to go down to the beach down there and have Elevenses, and these steps down are proper steep, and we've got, when we go down we do have to go back up again, but we do need to go down because there are a couple of interesting things to see down here. Okay, actually on our way down here we'll take a short diversion off the path here to the 13th century church just up here. So this is St Andrew's Church, or the ruins of, and we'll just head up here and take a look at that before we go down to the beach. The churchyard here is sometimes known as the Pirates' Graveyard, and we'll see why. It may not actually be the graves of pirates, but you'll see why people thought it was. So yeah, the ruins of St Andrew's Church. And the reason it's sometimes known as the Pirates' Graveyard is, and it might be difficult to see by now, some of the headstones have skull and crossbones on them. So yeah, the skull and crossbones, people in modern times saw that and falsely assumed that means it's a pirate's graveyard. But the skull and crossbones is actually like a memento mori thing, where it was quite common to decorate tombs and things with bones, motifs, and it was intended to remind the viewer that one day you will be bones. So prepare yourself for the judgment. But yeah, I can't see I think the stones might be too worn now, or vandalised. The ones that had skull and crossbones, I think it might be these down here. But yeah, not an actual pirate's graveyard, just a regular one. Right, here we go on these tombs, which the inscriptions are very worn and can barely be read. But here we go, there's a skull and crossbones motif. If I move around you might see it better. Yeah, we can't read the inscription on there, but this is not a pirate's tomb. This is just a thing people did to remind people visiting that, yeah, one day this will be you. This is Pennsylvania Castle. You can see up the top there. And so we'll just go up this track because I think there's something else to see up there as well. So up there, Pennsylvania Castle, built at the very end of the 18th century by John Penn, who was the last governor of the island, and was the grandson of William Penn, the English writer and theologian who became the founder of the province of Pennsylvania in North America. So there is a sort of connection between this Pennsylvania castle and the actual state of Pennsylvania. Somewhere around here, and I'm having trouble locating it, there is the ruins of a stone bath. John Penn was interested in the potential healing properties of bathing in cold seawater, but he didn't want to trek all the way down this hill to the sea, so he had a stone bath built somewhere just below Pennsylvania Castle here. I think it might be overgrown now, somewhere in amongst all this thicket. And so the seawater that he bathed in this stone bath up the hill here had to be carted up the hill by hand by his servants. Unfortunately, this all came to an end when the Court Leet, which was an organisation responsible for the common land on the island, decided that John Penn should pay a fine or a rent of 2 shillings and 6pence per year because he built his stone bath on common land. John Penn decided not to pay the fine, or refused to pay the fine, and so stopped using the bath, and it fell into ruin. No, nothing here. Well, I don't know. Like I say, it might be somewhere in this thicket. That is Pennsylvania Castle up there, so it's got to be around here somewhere. But I'm not quite sure we can visit it. I'll show you an archive photo that I found online. As to why St Andrew's Church is a ruin and not still a church to this day, the answer may lie in this wonky wall here. See, that was once a straight and level wall, but everything's a bit higgledy-piggledy now. And I think that's probably evidence that well, that and the fact that this wall is falling off the edge here as well is probably evidence that this cliff here is slowly tumbling down the hillside. This very typical for this kind of undercliff geology like this, for it to be slowly on the move, and anything you build here eventually ends up in the sea. Anyway, it is now overdue time for Elevenses, so let's get down there on the beach. The main footpath is actually gated off and closed owing to rock falls, so we've got to go down this bit here. Last time I was at Church Oak, they were putting that gate up, and they were, well, I thought they were restoring the footpath, and I asked them, can I go down there? And they said, yeah, sure. And I went down there, and 20 minutes later they'd locked the gate. which is fine. One of the gates you can just bypass it, the other gate you definitely can't. So we were not exactly stuck on the beach, but we had to take the other coast path, which is considerably more precipitous. It goes up over those rocks over there, and we're going to be going that way today. Anyway, this is the way down to the beach now. It's all a bit uneven and treacherous, so it's not by any means accessible. My me. Well, it's a bit like steps. Here we are on the beach then, well, if you can call it a beach. Yeah, as I say, this used to be a sandy beach. All of these rounded limestone pebbles are quarry waste that was just dumped here, and then the sea has rounded it off in the intervening years. This is the remnant of the original sandy beach here. So you can imagine landing a boat on a sandy beach like this would be much preferable to trying to land on rocks like that or in front of a cliff like that. So before Elevenses, a little hydration slurp of my cold brewed green tea, which looks like it has worked. That's certainly not just water in there anymore. Yeah, it's all right. It's quite a refreshing cold like iced tea, undersweet, but actually sweet from the aromas of the fruits. I was sat on a rock down there just a minute ago and I had to swiftly move upshore. Every now and again a big wave comes in and I would have got my feet wet down there. Here comes a big one, look. Yeah, I'd have had wet toes. My main drink is going to be that hot chocolate I made earlier. That's my Elevenses drink, and my snack, I think it's time for the picnic. So that's what that looks like. Sort of fudge or nougat in the middle, crispy rice, peanuts, raisins, chocolate. Good. Little bit of a sugar boost to see me down to Portland Bill, because it's just a continual slog down there from here. And this hot chocolate, in truth, I think that might be a little bit more water than you're meant to use, but it tastes good. Surprisingly sweet. I mean, it must have artificial sweeteners or something in it. It's sweet, it's chocolatey, there's a fruity cherry flavour. It's hot chocolate, it's nice. Right, well, the tide is coming in, although not by much, but we can't hang about here all day. So we'll say goodbye to Church Oak and head back up to the coastal path. But we're going that way now. So this little spring here is one of very few natural freshwater sources on the island. And that's probably why there was a church here. There was probably a monastery, a small settlement here, because there was a source of fresh water coming out of the limestone. We're underneath the cliff here. So that'll be why that was as that was. So if I needed to fill up my bottle, I could do so from there, although I'd probably need to boil it. Okay, well, we can't go that way. But Portland Bill is 2.5 miles this way. And this is a pretty rough path here. So, yeah, when we found ourselves, it's not a problem for me. I mean, obviously I'm not as sure-footed as I was when I was a lot younger. But imagine if you'd come down that main path and that was about as much as you could manage, and you got locked on the beach and then had to pick your way out of the place by this path, which is a lot more uneven, a lot more slippery, and a lot more hilly. So we wave goodbye to Church Oak and Rufus Castle, and hopefully that is the last bit of serious climb we've got on this journey. There's a lot of up and down still, but I think that was the last steep climb on this coastal path. I may be wrong. So quite a rugged path still. And again, I'm glad of the walking spoon. I nearly left it at home, and I thought, no, I better just take it, just as an additional point of contact with the ground. And I've been very glad of it. Well, hopefully it's not all like this, because we won't make very good time on this kind of terrain. So, trail marker this way. I think we're about 2 miles away from Portland Bill. I'm using miles because that's what all the markers are using, so it makes sense to use whatever's on the signs. But yeah, so there we go. That's a view of what most of the coast of Portland looks like. And you can imagine you wouldn't want to try to land a boat there. So this is a Boulderfield that was part of a quarry. As you can see, these stones are not this shape naturally. This is quarried stone that's been roughly dressed to size. Somebody's had a little go at a decorative detail there. But yeah, this would be roughly cut to size like this and then shipped off to stonemasons. A lot of London is built from Portland stone. It's a wonder to me that there's any of the island left. Oh, I wonder whose hole that is. I seem to have strayed off the path a little bit. No wonder that was a bit treacherous down there. This looks to be a more gentle path. That's the one I should have stayed on. Never mind. The coast path doubles back on itself a little bit here, just to go up the hill a bit. 2¼ miles to the bill. I really thought it would be less than 2 by now. So I think there is a track across that piece of rock there. I can see a path winding its way over there, but the official coast path goes up here, and I think it goes alongside the road. I think it might just be the pavement beside the road. Maybe erosion of the cliffs down there has just made the coast path a bit too treacherous. Oh. So that was yet another climb up to the top of the island again. We've been here before. Oh. Okay, so we're just south of Easton. Coast path, according to this very new sign, goes down here. So off we go to Portland Bill. Still quite a way. I can't even see the lighthouse yet. There we go. There's one of the Portland stone trucks carting off aggregates or maybe stone blocks off to somewhere or other. I see a finger post down there, which I think is the way back down to the coastal path. Hopefully it's not all up and down. I've had about enough of that now. I'm getting hungry. There was a network of little paths down there, but it looks like the diversion off the path was necessary because it does come to a stop down at a place down over there called Nookie Hole. Heck of a name for a place. Anyway, off we go back down to the coast path. There's a fairly decent path here for the moment. The path is far enough down behind this cliff that I can't hear the road anymore. All I can hear is the sea. Well, it's a very similar sound. And we get a fairly level
and reasonably well made paths to walk on. Oh boy. Get it? So yeah, just a very pleasant little path down here now, along underneath these cliffs. I imagine this wasn't constructed as a walking path. This is more than likely an old access road, or perhaps even a railway for the quarry work. I think most of the quarries used in Doctor Who for alien landscapes were in Wales, but certainly I think you could get away with filming a sci-fi movie here. And I think with a little bit of colour grading and perhaps a little bit of post-processing, you could maybe even film a western here. There's a big cutting over here. Let's just have a peer down into that. Again, these are all quarries. So there's deep cutting here, all overgrown with brambles and tumbled down rocks. You can see the water seeping out of the limestone. Limestone's quite porous, so all the rain that falls on the top of the island eventually finds its way down through the limestone and seeps out as springs, or just seeps out in cliff faces like this. We just keep the sea on our left now, all the way down to Portland Bill, which I can actually see. I can see the lighthouse. I can see more than one lighthouse. Let me get them in a position where you can see them. There we go. Off in the distance, there is the main Portland Bill lighthouse, and slightly to the right of it, the old lower lighthouse. There are 3 lighthouses on the island, only one of them in current service. There used to be 2, and they were replaced by the single one on the end. Yeah, there we go, look, rock doves. Those are not city pigeons, those are wild rock doves, ancestors of your city pigeons. They're wondering why I'm looking at them. I'll leave them alone. What a fantastic landscape to be walking through. I mean, it is an industrial landscape. This is a quarry, or a disused quarry, but it's stark and rugged and spectacular. It's quite a swell down there actually, beating against the rocks. It gets rough down this end of Portland, especially on a slightly breezy day like today. I'm wondering actually if I should take shelter in part of this quarry and cook my lunch here. Yeah, it's 12:30. I'm thinking actually what I might do is just stop somewhere here, because there's more shelter here in these disused quarries for my little stove. So let's go over here and find a little sheltered spot we can set up the stove. Okay, well, it seems like a decent place to set up. There's a relatively flat rock here. I can set up my little stove. It's nice and sheltered down here, and I can sit on the flat rock next to the stove. So let's get lunch going. So lunch is going to be this wheat berries, red rice, frika, black barley and quinoa. Perfect pulses and grains. I'll be the judge of that. Careful to take my rubbish with me. But yeah, there's a little bit of water in the dish. A little bit looser than I thought it was going to go. I thought that was going to be a block, but okay. And my meatballs, beef meatballs in tomato sauce, I'm just going to dump it on top. And you are going to see me use a pull-tab can here. Or shall I do it off camera so you can't see? Do you know, much as I love to use a can opener for opening pull-tab cans, and I do prefer to use a can opener, everybody's always trying to tell me different ways that I could use the pull-tab. Like, if you pull it up a little bit first, then you could use the can opener and then use that as a handle. And it's always like, why don't you do the thing you don't like before you do the thing you like? it makes me laugh. The latest one was somebody said, go and get a spoon. I struggled to open a pull tab on something recently, on those soup drops. I used a knife to prise it up, and somebody said, you're supposed to use a spoon to open a pull tab can. And I was thinking about that. If you're going to open the drawer for a spoon, why not open the drawer for a can opener? Right, I'm going to rinse that off with a bit more water. And there are the meatballs. Big meatballs. Make sure we get all of the sauce in there as well. Just had to stop for a change of battery on the GoPro. That's 2 of my 4 batteries used, and we're not quite halfway yet, so I shall need to conserve battery on the other leg of the journey, but I think there's less to see on the other side. Right, so I'm gonna rinse off that lid with a little bit of water, and I'm also going to rinse out this can so that we get all of the sauce out of there. I think that was probably worth doing. So this is going to be a bit more of a rice stew than meatballs and rice, but I think I'm up for that. Right, lid on, and we'll get that warming. And it goes on there to warm up, and then I clear away my rubbish. All of my rubbish is going to come home with me, and I will, obviously the cans and things I'll recycle. In fact, I'll recycle obviously everything I can. It's bubbling away nicely now. Just going to give it a little stir just to make sure it's not sticking on the bottom. So I've added a bit more water as well, so a bit more water than before. So we really have got a meatball and 5 grains stew. I think we might be close to done. That's really bubbling away nicely now. I'll give it a stir to get the edge bits into the middle, but I think we're probably, let me have a little taste from the edge there. Not quite hot enough, but it's not far off. Well, let's not spill it. Just move that up to that end. I think this end is hot now. Okay, 2 more minutes. Okay, I reckon that's ready. I'll turn off the gas and give this stew a taste. Alright, well I did manage to find some pepper to bring with me. If I can get that on there without it blowing away. I'm not going to add any more salt because we're already over budget for salt, so this contains all of the salt that I need for the day. In fact, a bit more than I need for the day. That's probably okay because I am exerting myself a bit more than usual, so I'm sweating more than usual. I can probably deal with a bit more salt. Anyway, here we go. 5 grains and meatball stew. It's really hot. It's good. The meatballs, very soft, supposedly Greek style meatballs. That's a decent meal. It would have been nice to get some foraged greens in here, but it just didn't happen. I'll tell you what though, this could be an opportunity to use some of these mini cheese crackers, which on their own are not very tasty, but perhaps broken up in there to serve like croutons or something. I mean, I could do with the energy, to be honest, because that was quite a trek up and down hills and stuff, and I am feeling like I need the food. So with the addition of the crackers, oh, it's a nice texture change. Actually, and the warmth of the stew does bring out the cheesy flavour of those crackers a little bit, so there is that. This is not a bad meal. It's quite tasty. I think it's going to fill me up. It's probably what I need for the rest of the trek. Well, I'll tell you what, on a slightly cold and rather blustery day like today, that went down a proper treat. That was really nice. It was good because it was quick to eat as well. And I think there is something satisfying about having a fast meal
on a cold day when you're outdoors. Okay, we're going to make tracks again, and while I trek I think we'll have the banana yogurt and the other banana bread oat boost. So that's my dessert. Or should I save this for this evening? No, I'm not. I'm going to eat it now. I need the energy for the second leg of the journey. Always just make sure when I finish somewhere like this, just have a look behind me, make sure I haven't left anything, either litter or equipment. And I'll give you my opinion of Little Freddy banana Greek style yogurt. It's pretty good. So this is a pasteurized ultra heat treated yogurt, so it's not alive. That's what makes it shelf stable. Yeah, it's pretty good. It tastes like banana yogurt. It doesn't taste like it's lacking in sugar. That'll do. I think this structure here was the base of a crane or a jib to get the stone off the edge of the cliff here down to waiting ships, presumably on a slightly calmer day than this. The weather is picking up a bit, but yeah, I think that's what this is. I think this is the base of a like jib crane. There is one still surviving apparently somewhere on the island. Cool. It is cooling down a bit now, so I might put an extra layer on, and I might switch from the brimmed hat to just a woolly hat, because this hat might blow away. Oh, and as if by magic, there is, I think, the last standing jib crane on the island. A couple of gulls up there on the crane. What are those, blackback gulls? And I think we need to head over there. I see a path going up a hill over there. So yep, there we go. That's the last remaining jib crane on the island. All of the others have just fallen into ruin and disappeared. And that would have been used for loading blocks of stone off the cliff top here to boats waiting below. Yeah, the weather is definitely picking up a bit here. So well, we can see a sea cave here. So the water undercuts these cliffs. Perhaps I won't stand too close to the edge. Yeah, I think I'm going to get out of this hat and into a different hat and put on, I had an extra layer, a jumper underneath my coat. I'm going to put that back on. I took it off earlier because it was nice and warm, but I'm going to put some warmer clothes back on. Right, that's a bit more weather appropriate. So let's carry on. It's 1:15 and I'm not quite at Portland Bill Lighthouse yet, so I'm a little bit behind schedule, but lunch is out of the way. I'm glad to have that warm meal inside of me. I think I need to concentrate on keeping hydrated. I've still got about half my water left. I brought 2 litres of water. I've consumed about 1 litre of it. But I think I need to keep hydrated because it's not a hot day, but this wind and the exertion as well, just the exercise, does make for a recipe for dehydration. Anyway, on we go. So from here we can see all 3 lighthouses: the modern lighthouse, the lower lighthouse, and the higher lighthouse. The lower lighthouse is taller than the higher lighthouse because the lower and higher names are about the terrain they're on, not their height above ground. This here is a blowhole. So this is a opening that goes down to a sea cave, and when the weather is really ferocious, water just comes gushing up out of here. I don't think we'll necessarily see that today. I don't think it's quite rough enough for that today. Anyway, we must press on. So yeah, there used to be two lighthouses. There used to be the lower lighthouse here and the higher lighthouse, and they were both taken out of service and replaced by this single Portland Bill lighthouse at the end, which is visible from all of the directions that the old lighthouses would have been anyway. This is very interesting. The grass here is strewn with freshly broken up pieces of stone, and I think this is probably from Storm Ingrid. I was down here recording for Slow TV for Storm Ingrid, and I think the waves have probably broken over here and blown all of this stone up onto the turf there. Yeah, you can see it's picking up already. So there is a public footpath that takes us up, that would take us up past the lower lighthouse and across to the higher lighthouse, but I do want to go all the way down to the Bill because I want this to be as near as possible a tour of the perimeter of the island. The weather really is picking up now, although we are on the most exposed part, so not nearly as rough as it was when I was down here for Storm Ingrid, but still plenty rough. So we're coming up for Portland Lighthouse now, and in the foreground the Lobster Pot restaurant. They do good crab sandwiches there, but we're not stopping for a crab sandwich today. We'll go down to Pulpit Rock next. There's another loading jib crane thing there. I thought there was only one left on the island. Maybe that other one we saw was the last timber constructed one. This one looks like it's made of steel. Nobody choosing to sit outside at the Lobster Pot. I wonder why. Over there to the left of the lighthouse is the Trinity House Daymark. It's again a navigation aid. I'm not sure you really need a Daymark when you've got a great big lighthouse there, but maybe it helps. Thought you'd probably appreciate a view of the lighthouse up close here. Does anybody think it's a shame that lighthouses don't have lighthouse keepers anymore? It's all automated now, and that's a good thing. I mean, it does keep people safer, but there is something, I think, ever so slightly melancholically romantic about the notion of a lighthouse keeper, the notion of somebody who lives in the lighthouse, especially if it's one that's out at sea. I think I wouldn't mind giving that a try. Not all the time, but I wouldn't mind spending a month in a lighthouse. Right, so that's the Daymark over there. We're going to head over here to Pulpit Rock. I don't think we'll be able to walk out to Pulpit Rock today because the sea just seems too rough. I think it's probably going to be breaking over the rocks there, but we'll have a look. But Pulpit Rock is another one of these quarry relics. Another remnant of the terrain level as it was before all the quarrying was done. I mean, we probably could go out there, but I won't. So Pulpit Rock is a quarry relic. So that's a piece of unquarried stone just left there. All of the stone surrounding it has been quarried away, and again, not very sure why it was done. The quarry workers may have done it as a monument to their toil. This leaning slab of stone there was added, and the reason it's called Pulpit Rock is because that's supposed to represent a Bible leaning against the pulpit. So heading back inland now and north from Pulpit Rock. I can't point my camera to the left here, but there's an MOD base here, and I don't think they take kindly to me pointing cameras in that direction. If they're looking, I don't know. It's the right thing to do is not record it. Anyway, so we head north up to the Higher Lighthouse, which, as I say, is the shorter lighthouse. I am going to have my second banana bread oat boost. I didn't have it with my banana yogurt, even though it was supposed to be combined with that as my dessert. I'm going to eat this now as we walk up here, just to give me a bit of energy to get up the hill. Unsurprisingly, it's exactly the same as the first one. So leaving the MOD base, the MOD Ministry of Defence, by the way, in case you didn't know, leaving the MOD base behind us now, we just need to slog up the west side of the island. So it might be even rougher this side, or it might not, but it might be different. And so we're just gonna, the going here is a bit easier, grazed turf underfoot, and it's flat, if not level. It's flat as in it doesn't go up and down a lot, but it's not level because it goes gently uphill, basically from here all the way to the other end of the island. So the return leg, the island does slope down along its length, and we're now walking up that slope. The cliffs on the other part of the island there have come into view, and we can see Chesil Beach again over there in the distance. And it is further away than it looks. We've still got about probably 4 miles to go. Every now and again I keep seeing like a beaten path that goes off the edge of the cliff, as if there's a track down there to something. I don't even want to think about what it must be like to try to climb down this cliff on foot, or what there could possibly be down there to make it worthwhile going down. So we're coming up to the old Higher Lighthouse just here and the Coast Guard station, but before we do, I thought we'd have a last look at the new lighthouse down there and Portland Bill. Looks a long way away now, doesn't it? Up we go then. And actually, once we get up here, it's fairly level for a fair bit of the rest of the walk, which I won't be complaining about. So yeah, here we go. Coast Guard station and the old Higher Lighthouse. And yeah, apparently people do get the names mixed. The lower lighthouse is taller and the Higher Lighthouse is shorter. Anyway, I've got a little bit of blurb on the history of this thing, so let's see what that says. I think you can actually stay in this. It's a holiday cottage now, but I will consult my notes. The old High Lighthouse was constructed in 1716 and it was decommissioned in 1906, and it sold off as a private home and became known as Branscombe Lodge. This lighthouse was famously later purchased by birth control pioneer Mary Stopes as a holiday home, but now it can be booked as a holiday home just for general holiday stays by anyone. So if you fancy staying in a lighthouse, you can book this. Sounds delightful. Delightful. Right, I don't know if I'm supposed to go in here or down there. Somebody's digging a trench along there. I think that's where I have to walk. Well, it looks like we have to walk on mud now. Someone's clearing the track. Interesting old bits of brick and stuff here. So evidence of I mean, it could just be somebody dumped some demolition waste into the land here. But anyway, I think this is the coast path. Presumably they're going to lay some surface on this. So the sun is definitely on the west side of the island now. It's just gone 2 o'clock and there isn't very much to see on this side. Not at the moment. There's still some sights to see further up, but I'm going to try and find somewhere to stop in a minute and have a little rest and see if I can boil enough water for a cup of tea. So I seem to be the only human out walking today, and it is a wonderful feeling here actually. There's this eerie sense of walking on the edge of the world on these cliffs here, with the sea so far below me down there. I mean, I'm not far from civilization. That's the village of, is that Weston over there? I think it's Weston. Might be a bit of Southwell. But yeah, I'm not far from civilization. There is a magnificent sense of quiet desolation. Of aloneness. I don't mind that. Those birds down there might be choughs. I can't see their feet. If they have red legs, they're choughs. Choughs are a coastal living corvid crow family. Now those might be jackdaws, but they don't look very silvery on the head for jackdaws. They're too far away for me to see their legs. Choughs have got red legs. Oh, a little bit of respite from the wind just in this little dell here. Oh, there we go. Then it's back again. I see a human up ahead. I'm not seeing very many other walkers at all. Maybe only probably 3 or 4 people met walking on the other way down the other side of the island. And I haven't met anybody at all on this way. This will be the first person I've met on this leg of the journey up the west side. So yeah, that village there is Southwell. Up here is Weston. So the island has villages named for 3 of the compass points. There's Easton, Weston and Southwell. There isn't a Northton or Northwell. That would be Fortuneswell, which I might be pronouncing wrong. I'm not a local. Oh, that's an interesting thing. So I'm not a local, I'm not an islander. I'm a Kimberlin. Kimberlin is the name islanders use to describe outsiders. I think traditionally it would have been people who were not just outsiders, people who were coming here to work for one reason or another. I think because they used to stay in the Kimberlin Club or something. There was a boarding house, and so people who were visiting the island, outsiders, would stay in the Kimberlin Club, and they became known as Kimberlins. It's a bit like in Devon they have Grockles, in Cornwall Emmets. It's just a convenient name for outsiders. Oh look, we got a marker, a way marker. So, oh, that's just useful. No distances or anything, but coast path that way and that way. Southwell that way. But we're going this way, along the coast path. Absolutely amazing view of the cliffs there. And again, I can see quarried blocks stacked as if they were ready to be shipped somewhere. Presumably those were the last ones quarried by that quarry, and then it closed down. So the blocks are still there waiting. But yeah, I mean, there's a path. Look, there is a path. People clamber down this cliff to get down there. I don't think I want to do that. Maybe the fishing down there is really good. In case you're worrying about this strong wind blowing me over the cliff top, don't worry. The wind is relentlessly onshore, so it's blowing in off the sea. Not at any point in this journey have I experienced any wind that's trying to blow me offshore, so I don't think I'm in any great danger of getting blown over the side. Oh look, wild cabbage. Oh look, if we'd found this earlier, I could have picked some little broccoli, little wild broccoli sprouts to have in my stew. But I'm not doing any more cooking today. My final meal for today is not a cooked meal. It's a salad in a tub. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be like. I've never had one of those before. But yeah, look at that. So there's a wild cabbage, looking very, very cabbagey. That looks a lot like spring greens. If you're in America, that's spring greens. That's what we call the thing you call collard greens. So yeah, a whole stand of wild cabbage there. If only I'd found some of that on the way down. This is worth probably stopping and looking at. I'm not going to go down there because it's a bit too near the edge, but there are ripples on that bit of limestone there, which are probably the fossilized ripples in a seabed or a beach millions of years ago. That's like ripples you get on the seafloor, and then they've just covered over with another layer of stuff and eventually become rock. But yeah, you can see down here quarried blocks all stacked up against the edge there, almost forming a wall actually. I don't know that I'm going to find anywhere on this side of the island with enough shelter to put my little stove on and make a cup of tea, so I might have to settle for cold drinks for the rest of the journey, unless I can find a bit of shelter later on. I've still got some of my green tea and some of my hot chocolate left, so I might just stop and have a little slurp of that. I mean, there might be some shelter down there somewhere, but I'm not going to try and clamber down. I really don't fancy going up and down too much more today. There's a little lull in the wind for a moment. It's nice when it stops. And so good view along the cliffs here, back where we've walked. You can see the old Higher Lighthouse just in the distance down there. I don't know how far I am up the side of the island yet. We're alongside Western, which is not exactly west of Eastern. So yeah, when we get as far up as Eastern, we're going to cut inland, have a look at the church. Oh wow, hailstones. This is worth stopping and watching. You can see the wind galloping across the grass here. And for the first time in the whole trip, I have felt wind blowing me towards the cliffs. Fortunately, the path is a long way from the cliff here, so no danger. But yeah, you can see the wind racing and spiraling across the grass here. You can see here the very distinctive circular platform. This would have been a gun emplacement, and that's not a particularly robust pillbox there, so that might have just been quarters for the gun crew. But yeah, that structure over there to the left definitely is a base for some sort of artillery. It looks like there might have been a bunker here as well, maybe again a powder store over here. It's partly collapsed, that structure, so and I'm not going to try and climb across the fence and go down there. Oh boy, the weather really is picking up now. You can see rain falling over here across Chesil Beach. We've been quite lucky with the precipitation so far. Only had a few little scattering showers of drizzle and one very stingy spate of sleet or hailstones. It looks like the path might come to an end here. That's interesting. Okay, I thought the path was going to divert to the right around this private residence, but it does say that it goes down here. Let's have a look. Blimey, it's a bit cliff toppy down here. Okay, I'm going to put the camera away because I want to have my hand on my stick to steady me. Down here is called Hallelujah Bay. I have no idea why. I'm not going to take this cliff path here. It's just a bit too windy and the path is really close to the edge. I'm not happy to do that. I did need to cut inland anyway to go and see St George's Church, So we're just going to cut inland a bit earlier. So we'll go back up here and we'll go along that path towards Easton and just cut back inland a bit earlier than I actually planned to. I don't fancy getting blown over a cliff today, or any day. So cutting inland a bit now, and to be honest, it's a bit nice to get away from the wind. That is St George's Church over there, so we'll take a left in a minute and head towards that. We walk through the cemetery and then off to the sculpture park. But yeah, see what I mean about very few wooden fences. There are some, but nearly everybody's actually got stone walls. So I'm going to walk up through St George's Cemetery. I'm not going to record in here, I don't think it's really appropriate. Up to St George's Church now. This is the older churchyard, so this is Victorian graves and before, but it's still, I'm just not going to wander around here with the camera. I'll get some footage of St George's Church when we get up there. We could go inside and have a look. I'm not going to because my boots are muddy. So I'm just going to sit down here actually in the shelter and read the blurb from the church's Conservation Trust. It says, vast and solitary, St George's is one of the most magnificent 18th century churches in Dorset. It rises from the rocky, treeless and dramatic peninsula Portland and is the masterwork of a local mason named Thomas Gilbert, whose grandfather supplied the Portland stone used to build St Paul's Cathedral. The sprawling churchyard is a treasure trove of fabulous headstones and memorials that tell tales of murder, piracy, adventure in a gloriously atmospheric setting. The churchyard here has got burials from pirates, smugglers, various local characters. We're not going to wander around because I need to stop here and rest a while and have a little drink and my afternoon snack, which is going to be some toasted cashew nuts, a little bit of hot chocolate, probably only warm chocolate by now, and a little bit of cold green tea. That's actually all right. That green tea is quite nice, just cold brewed like that. I will do that again. Hot chocolate, how hot is the hot chocolate? Oh, well, there was a hiss when I opened that. Tepid. And cashew nuts. Not toasted, they're just nuts. I thought they were toasted. Not salted either. They're alright though. Nice little pick me up. So leaving behind St George's Church, we are going to head back down here, down this track, past a quarry. I think it's Bower's Quarry down here. It might be called Bower's Quarry. But there is a path down here. Let's have a look and see what this sign says. Public footpath and West Cliff maybe? Okay, well we'll go down here. So I think this is another working quarry. So I think down here we will rejoin the coast path. Doesn't seem to be very much activity going on in this quarry today. I don't know if it's still completely active. There are still places on the island where there are quarry reserves, so there's bits of land reserved for future quarrying. Like I say, it's amazing to me that it's a relatively small island. The amount of stone that's been exported from here all over the world, but especially to build our cities in this country, I suppose it's just a bit difficult to visualize how the volume of stone in a quarry becomes a building. You know, buildings are hollow, obviously, so probably use less stone than you might think. But anyway, it is just remarkable to me that quarrying is still going on here and still able to go on and will go on in the future. So we're back on the coast path again. That's the bit I didn't walk around down there below that building. I'm glad I didn't walk on that bit. Just a bit too edgy. So now continue on the coast path, and we've got a lovely view of Chesil from up here. It'd be better if it was a clearer day, but we can see Chesil Beach from up here. Stop and have a look at that when we get to the right point. There's quite a bit of surf breaking on the beach now. Weather conditions, as I say, really picked up since we set off this morning. So we made rather better time than I thought we would. Through here in a minute, I think, is Tout, Quarry, Sculpture Park. But I'm just going to go up here for a moment because I think we might be able to find a bit of shelter to put the little stove on, boil a bit of water and have a warm cup of tea. We just need enough respite from the breeze to light the stove and a level place to put it. So this is obviously the remains of a little quarry, but it's nice and calm in here, and that's a flat enough rock down here, so I won't be able to sit down, but I can get the stove on and get a cuppa. This could all end in disaster, but I think we'll get the cup on there and it will balance. Okay, we will try and boil some water on top of the stove on a cup. I've done it before. I can see bubbles forming on the bottom. It's a hopeful sign. All right, bubbles are rising. I think we're nearly there. Okay, I'm not going to try and touch that handle yet because it might have had flames licking up past it, but I can get the tea bag in there. So this is peach and passion fruit green tea. So I'll just let that steep for a little bit while I pack up the stove. And I don't know if we're already in the sculpture park, but there is a gargoyle carved into this rock here. We wouldn't have seen that if we'd not come down here to make tea. Right, just going to park here for a moment, sit on this very bumpy rock. Oh, it's just as well I'm well padded, and have some green tea. Cheers. Hot. Nice, actually, peach and passion fruit. I think I do prefer the blackcurrant and strawberry one, but this is good. And I needed warming up. Yeah, as before, we leave nothing. And onward. So definitely the morning was the better part of the day, I think. This afternoon has turned out to be really quite blustery. Not quite sure where I'm going to sit to have my dinner. Might be down on Chesil Beach, actually. Anyway, round the corner here is Tout Quarry Sculpture Park. So this is a disused quarry that's been turned into a sculpture park. So I think some of these bits are actually sculptures as well. So these, you know, not all of the works here are labelled. Some of them are just artistically arranged piles of rocks. Right, there is a sign here for your safety. What does it say? Stay on designated paths. Take care of your own safety and supervise children closely. Keep dogs on leaves. No climbing. Unprotected cliffs and banks. Beware of loose rocks. Uneven walking surfaces. Okay, are we safe? Are we good to go? Okay. Helicopter. Just hovering. There is a stone table here with a circle. It looks like you may be meant to move that stone around and around and grind things in here. It really does look like a, you know, that is a loose stone. Maybe this is an interactive exhibit where you're meant to do something. I don't know what the helicopter's doing up there. Well, it's hovering, obviously. The Roy dog. An old Portland tail which used to live at a cave hole at Portland Bill. People say he has one red eye and one green eye and is known to hunt smugglers and fishermen that passed his cave. If you look closely you can see the eyes of his victims weaved into his fur. Okay. Port and starboard eyes. Wonder what that helicopter's looking for. There's sculpture everywhere, including on the ground. Yeah, he's obviously off now. This is a lot more overgrown than it was last time I was here. Last time I think I was able to go down this bit here, and this is the bit, I think this is where I went down. Yeah, that's where I brewed my cup of tea down there. But nature is gradually taking over this sculpture park and overgrowing the stones, and I think that's actually quite a nice thing. You know, I think it's actually quite, it's got a sense of, I don't know, melancholy to it, you know, like the abandoned Japanese theme park type of vibe to it, where it was once a thing and it's becoming nature again. Yeah, I'm sure there was more to it before, but I think the bits of it, I think some bits of it have completely overgrown and it's now just turned back into nature. There might be more of it down here. We weave our way down here through the tumbled boulders, and this sort of terrain, this all this, you know, although this is quarry waste and, you know, it's just piles of rocks, this is great for nature. All of these little crevices and things provide opportunities for small mammals to live, birds to nest, invertebrates, reptiles. I mean, I bet there are loads of lizards around here, and I bet they come out and bask on the rocks. Not on a day like today though. So yeah, I think this is still part of the sculpture park. We've got petroglyphs of some sort here. I wonder if we're being invited to crawl under there. Not today. there's something else over here I've missed. So it's a sculpture that's made of stacks and stacks of tiles. And is it concealed in... Yes, it's hidden away in amongst the other stones. Right, I need to conserve battery because I'm on my last battery now for the GoPro and we still haven't eaten dinner. This way takes us back to the coast path. So back down here to Chiswell or Chesil. It's 4 o'clock now. I've been walking all day. And I think I might have my dinner back at the car. I'm fairly sure this track here is an original quarry track, and we can see here grooves worn into the stones from the carts. That'll be the horses and carts carting the stone out before that railway was put together. We've nowhere to go but down now, so down the hillside. I think it's quite steep. Down over there is Chesil Beach. Maybe I'll sit on Chesil Beach to eat my dinner. Well, it's not exactly a seasidey day, is it? Let's see what view we get from just through here before I turn the camera off to conserve battery. So here we go. In a recent video I gave you the view of Chesil Beach from the other end, from the viewpoint up there on the hills that you can barely see through the mist. So this is the view from this end, and we're going to head down that hill somehow. Okay, down the hill. And actually you can see where we started over there. So over there is Portland Castle. That's where we started out this morning. Seems like a long time ago. There are steps here that look like they go down and connect to this network of paths that would take us down across this land here. But I don't really fancy it. I think we'll go down the footpath here. We might go down the road. Listen to Chesil Beach. The roaring of the shingle in the waves. The architecture here, the terraced houses, the little stone cottages, has got a definite West Country charm to it. Okay, we're back down onto Chesil now. Actually, I think we'll cut through here. Big oak. This will take us up to the Cove House Inn. I am so tempted to go in the Cove House Inn and have a pint, but I got to drive home, so I won't. I can smell fish and chips. I am so tempted to abandon my ration pack meal and go and get some fish and chips, but I suppose I better not. We'll do that another time. So Chesil Cove looking pretty wild. Yeah, I think I'll find a little bench up here or something and sit down, or maybe I'll just sit on the sheltered side of Chesil Bank. Ah yes, Chesil Beach pebbles, this is very familiar. I'm starting to lose the light now, and on this little bit of Chesil Beach here I'm just going to sit on this bit of wooden barrier and we'll sample the last meal of the ration pack, the tuna salad. Oh, it looks like I'm going to be stuck in traffic on the way home. Those temporary lights on Ferry Bridge, but that's not for a little while yet, so maybe it'll clear before I get there. Now, good thing about this meal is it's just ready to go. So all I need to do is open it and eat it. And same with my drink. My ginger beer is just ready to drink. I don't have to boil anything up. So, nice hiss. That's all right. It's very ordinary ginger beer and not very fiery. And there's, oh dear, that oh man, really? That's a meal, is it? Okay, let's hope it tastes better than it looks. Yeah, I mean it does. It's tuna in a tomato and red pepper sauce. Nice bit of heat to it actually. Cold rice, various vegetables. Of course, that's not a picture of the product. That's a serving suggestion. That's just the way you could eat it. That's not what it looks like. Yeah, it does taste better than it looks. A fair bit of tuna in there. But that is a bit of a disappointing finale. However, I'm too hungry to really turn my nose up at it. I mean, I could have thrown it away and gone and got some fish and chips. No, I won't. Right, well, I think it's time now to go and spend a few moments with Studio Shrimp for scoring the ration pack, lessons learned, reflections on this walk around Portland. Okay, scoring for the meals. Breakfast. I think this is actually close to the perfect breakfast for a trip like this. It was reasonably well balanced, it's ready to eat, it's quick to eat, and you could even eat it on the move. And despite that shake thing being fortified with all the vitamins and stuff, it really just tasted like a nice chocolate milkshake. This one's a straight 10. Lunch. Just those two components, the cooked grains and the canned meatballs, made a really satisfying and warming dish. It would have been nice with some foraged greens, and I am disappointed in my own self for not getting around to doing that. So this one is only 8 out of 10, and those 2 points deducted are down to me. The food itself was very good. Dinner, it tasted pretty good, but the disparity between serving suggestion and reality was shocking and maybe the worst I've ever seen. I was really tired at this point and quite hungry, so I wasn't going to turn it down. But this one only gets 6 out of 10 after demerits for presentation. Snacks and desserts. Obviously the picnic was great, I love those. The banana bread oat boosts were very good. The cheesy crackers were baby food, so I can't really act surprised about them lacking salt. The cashew nuts were just okay. Roasted and salted would have tasted better, but I was already over the salt limit. More about that in a moment. The banana yoghurt thing was, despite being technically baby food, pretty great. Really tasty. Drinks. The green tea was good, refreshing as a cold brewed drink, and restorative as a hot cuppa on a cold blustery day. The hot chocolate was kind of okay, bit oversweet, even though that sweetness was not sugar. The coffee was fairly mediocre and didn't taste much of coffee. The ginger beer was okay, it was cheap, and at that level it was perfectly acceptable for a can of ginger beer. All in all, I would say that this ration pack was at least as enjoyable as some of the military rations I've tried. The walk around the island was really interesting but also exhausting. Here's the route. Total of just over 14.5 miles or 23.5 kilometres. There is a striking difference between the east and west sides of the island. The east side is all rugged and very scenic. The west side is mostly a straight run along a high cliff top. The west side would be much better to visit on a clearer day when the elevation would command a view right across Lyme Bay, probably all the way to the coastline of Devon. I know I will have missed a lot of landmarks and sights on the way around. There just wasn't time for more. I set off before 8 AM and arrived back at the car around 5:45 in the evening. Taking off maybe an hour and a half for all those stops, that's still well over 8 hours of walking. An average of less than 2 miles per hour, but that's hardly surprising given some of the terrain. But there are some bits I definitely need to go back for. I would like to get down to those salt pans near Little Beach sometime, and the Cuttings Boulderfield between there and Church Oak looks worth exploring. I did only visit a tiny fraction of the sculpture park too, not to mention all the inland stuff that I didn't even see from my route. On the nutrition and cost scoring for the ration pack, that was a mixed bag. I was okay on cost, even after adding the price for what I would have paid for utensils.
I hit the targets for energy, protein, carbohydrates, saturated fats and fibre. I was ever so slightly over on total fat, but by such a tiny amount I don't even really think that counts as a fail. I was way over on sugar. But maybe that was okay, given the 8-hour workout of walking around the island, and I was a little over on salt. 1.3 grams of excess salt doesn't seem like much, but that's more than 21% more than the target, and the target is supposed to be an upper limit. Again, maybe that's kind of okay, because with all that exercise I probably did lose more salt to sweat than I would on a day when I sit at my desk editing videos. However, I'm less sure about this one being okay, because according to some experts, that 6 gram salt RDI is already way more salt than you really need for the operation of your body. I don't know, what do you think? I consumed about 3 litres of water, including the liquids in the food, and I was rather dehydrated at the end of the day. But every extra litre of water is an extra kilo of pack weight. I would need a proper hiking backpack if I'd loaded any more weight to carry, but still that weight has to go through your legs and feet. And I had my share of blisters and aches at the end of the walk, which would have been worse with a heavier pack. Of course, I wasn't trekking through the desert, so I could have found places to top up with water en route. That spring at Church Ope, after boiling or using water purification tablets probably. Or maybe a tap or standpipe or something somewhere along the way, maybe at the Lobster Pot restaurant. The lesson learned. Shopping with the constraints of pre-packed individual servings and trying to hit nutritional targets was surprisingly hard. Those really are two quite sharply conflicting goals. I already knew that there was a lot of salt and sugar in prepackaged foods, but this exercise really hammered that point home for me. I think that's probably about enough of the conclusion. Back to hiking shrimp for the farewell.
So yeah, it looks like the journey home is going to be a little bit slow. So thanks for joining me on this trip around Portland today. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.